Well, hello everybody, I'm Gary from Lantana Removal, Queensland. Thanks for joining me. I just wanted to run you through a few of the reasons why I'm so against the poisoning with Lantana. In the video that follows this, you'll see graphic situations of the weed banks that start to come up wherever the Lantana itself has been poisoned, or the cockspur, which is also known as cat's claw. It's a very, very serious issue that with the poisoning of those particular types of plants, well, all poisoning, the weed bank that comes back is a lot of the weeds that were never on those properties to start with, so it was never successful. Plus, the plant doesn't automatically disintegrate. It doesn't suddenly disappear like acid poured on something and it dissolves. The plant is still there. So what was successful about poisoning that plant? Nothing at all. In fact, from our point of view, when we mechanically come in and we remove that plant, it actually is harder to remove because it's more prone to not coming out as a whole. It comes out in pieces, so it's slower and harder to remove. But in so many cases there, as soon as you scratch the plant, you find the plant is still viable below ground or just above ground. So it didn't really kill the whole plant. It removed most of the foliage. The drift spray that it killed was over a very large area, but it did not do the desired result. There was no miraculous pill. It's like people get caught up when we're doing our work to try to push and want you to remove as much material as you possibly can, which is understandable. But it's the quality of the removal that means that you get most of the cancer. Okay, if you can understand that, that's the key ingredient. It's about getting as much of the cancer as you can and leave the ground as intact as you can. So it's a balancing act between those things. That's the main thing about Lantana, is it's not that hard to kill. But if you poison it, okay, you just create a whole host of other problems, and then you still got to have the plant removed. Much of the footage in that particular area, the whole creek area was completely still choked and blocked by the material itself, so nothing could go through there. Animals still couldn't go through there. There's no access available. So it really didn't, it did not really have a useful result. It cost money for the poisons, it cost time, and if you get it wrong, you die. So I'm so anti-poisons in that prospect, because you've killed the soil biology. The soil biology was what you were going to rely on to regenerate the area to then stop the cancer from coming back. That's what the Department of Primary Industries says about the whole thing. You need to outcompete the plant, the problem. And if you're going to poison and destroy the ecosystem that you're going to plant back into, how does that work? It doesn't. So stay away from poisons. They're a mistake. They're a mistake on every level. The footage will show you more about that, but anyway, that's the basis of the thing. I'm Gary from Lantana Removal, Queensland, and my son Jolie and I do all the work ourselves. If you've got a job that you need done, please give us a call. We work all over southeast Queensland, predominantly around Narangba, Sanford, Mount Glorious, Somerset, all around the areas, and we mechanically remove it and destroy and eradicate the material. So that's basically how we work it. We have 3-day, 5-day and 10-day packages, and we do pre-sale inspections and mapping out plans of how to combat it, things like that. So we have all sorts of different pre-sale eradication programs, because one way or another, you know, people are going to start taking large sums of money off your selling your property when it's infested by Lantana. You're better off removing it your cost, you know. Even if it was $100,000 on a fairly decent eradication situation, you're going to have people taking $200,000 off the sale price, you know. And some of the infestations that we've seen are $200,000, $300,000 infestations. You know, you cannot afford to be buying properties without knowing how much it's going to cost you to remove that material. And we're the only ones with the expertise that knows how much those costs are and knows what's involved in actually doing that work. You'd be crazy to be spending that sort of money and then get caught in that thing in the future. That's what's going to happen. It's going to become a bigger and bigger disaster with what the government has done with the policies. So please give us a call if you need pre-sale eradications, pre-inspections, or eradication programs. I'm Gary, as I said before. Please like our page, please like our videos, please subscribe, please share them. Please talk this matter over with all of the family and other people that you can think of, because this is an Australian problem and it's one that we need to change the course of this. Otherwise it's going to cost every Australian in the long run, and from now on it's going to cost every Australian. It's a massive problem. Anyway, thank you very much for stopping by. I'll catch you next time. Bye bye. So, well, when you look at how big a mess this stuff is, this is the stuff that's already been poisoned, but as soon as you pull on it, it'll show that it's still alive. So nothing's really been achieved. It still has to come out of the ground for the ground to be useful for anything, because it's still poisoning and stopping the ground from rejuvenating anyway. Plus the poisons that have been sprayed over it have created a weed bank. That's an extensive weed bank. You can see where the edge of it, where it was poisoned, comes to, and it just keeps going along. So nothing was really achieved. And you look at the rest of it and it's still excessively green as well. So, you know, it's just a waste of time. It's an absolute waste of time with the cockspur and stuff like that. And it encourages other weeds that are even more ferocious to get involved and be a part of all those things. So yeah, so it's a big job, this one, that's for sure. But then they all are big jobs. We don't get called in on small jobs, you know, little tiny jobs. They're all very big areas that need to be cleaned up. And there's no other real way of doing it. Not that is economical to make a real difference to it. You look at these chunks of these cockspurs, and the cockspur runs to each other, and wherever they've been poisoned, you look at the weed banks around those plants that have been poisoned. The weed bank doesn't really exist through the common grasses. It's really focused around those poisoned areas, and then it takes off from there and then comes back out into the pasture. So it just is a nightmare of management like that. I'm so against poisons. It not just from the ecological point of view, but the amount of areas that you look at, and I can't see how anything worthwhile came of it. So you can see where all the ground has been laid bare, where it was poisoned in amongst these things, and it continues in the way that the Lantana leaves poison underneath themselves. It just keeps it going. So it's a massive problem, but these problems are excessively large problems in management. You either spend the money and the property's worth it, or you don't spend the money. But there's weeks and weeks and weeks of work in these type of areas. Like you look at the terrain up there, and for us to end up going up into those areas, which we will do, it's very slow, hard work. But there isn't any other way of really doing it. It's not like you have a lot of other options where you can, you know, manage to control this type of material once it's started there. But one thing's for sure, when you're in this sort of situation, once you spend this money on your property, you should be getting onto the people that are next door, because they're going to be reinfesting you all the time. And they're massive jobs. Really, the amount of money they spent in poisons and what they achieved. You look at the way the weed bank and thistle and all sorts of weeds has come in under that, in the rubbish. It's just not an ecologically viable option to do that sort of stuff. So those management issues for us are a much bigger issue in our type of work. Look at the weed banks in there that are in the watercourse. This was all poisoned in the watercourse. And that's one of the big problems. I just am so against putting poisons into watercourses. It really just creates such a mess. And that's the funny part. Nearly everything that I've ever seen poisoned, not just related to Lantana, everything I've seen poisoned ends up with this crap. The weeds that grow are the things that are resistant to the poisons. So it gets worse. It doesn't get better. You get a whole heap of other different types of weeds that are even harder to kill. And then you start spraying harder poisons to try and kill those. It just does not make sense. What seems like a simple, easy solution by saying, oh, well, I don't have to work real hard. I just get a big squirt gun and I squirt it over everything and I kill everything. But what comes back and comes back quicker is actually the worse, the more troublesome stuff. And the stuff still doesn't go away. It still takes a lot to physically remove it. You look at how dead all of this material is, okay? Right, dead and dry. And then this is growing, this is still on it. It's still alive. You haven't killed it. What did you achieve? Just introduced a heap of weeds to your property. People always keep wanting to take the shortcuts, and yet in everything in life, including horses, there are no shortcuts. There are no magic pills. Either do it right, or in this particular case, there is no other option. You must do it right, because otherwise this material just keeps taking over more and more and more of your land, and you lose even bigger. And when it's pouring out of the state forest like it is here, it just is an endless circle. An endless circle of destruction. Oh boy. Yeah, anyway. Okay, well that's it. You see what I'm trying to say. You can see all these things as they go through and how they affect things.